settle for any ordinary brand. Let Gerry Foster, the branding evangelist, show you how to have a world-class brand here on Big Brand Formula. No more spinning your wheels, wondering what it takes to have a great brand that can have great things happen for you. Gerry wants you to think big and go big. Through his interviews and inspiring teachings, each episode is devoted to giving you the guidance, support, and tools for big branding your business, product, or a service, or even yourself as a personal brand. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your host, Gerry Foster.
Welcome, everybody, to the Big Brand Formula podcast. I'm Gerry Foster, the Big Branding Guy, also known as the Branding Evangelist. One of the things that I always love to mention at the start of any of my podcasts when I have the opportunity to interview someone is that I am very excited about bringing the best of the best of people that I know or people that I come across who are doing extraordinary things in the world, who have a gift, have a talent, a skill, and ability, and they're out there making a huge difference and a contribution to the planet, to the community they serve, or to a particular marketplace. And we have one of those individuals today. Oh my goodness. I met this guy, about a couple of months ago at a virtual summit that he and I were both participating in. And I had the opportunity to speak with him later on by phone, and I was just so impressed with who he is and what he is about. And I cannot help but to say I am thrilled and excited to have Michael Tranmer here as my special guest. Now, before I bring Michael on, let me tell you a little bit about this young man. Michael is the author of Satori Ananda, Awaken to Happiness, a memoir about the life transformation he experienced following the sudden end of his marriage. In his book, Michael fearlessly shares his journey of self-discovery to his consciousness awakening after the trauma of the breakup. In his raw and powerful memoir, Michael shares how he used his pain to find a greater purpose in life. I love that. Michael also works as an engineer in the highly specialized field of coastal engineering. That means he's a brainiac. He's one of these real smart guys, where he designs and builds infrastructure along the British Columbia coast. Michael embodies and speaks on transcendent leadership, drawing on experiences from his personal and professional life. So, welcome, Michael. How you doing, guy?
I just keep going, Gerry. Things sound great. Things sound great. Let's just leave it at that. We've peaked. No, I'm wonderful. I'm grateful to be here with you today. Grateful your time, and super grateful to be introduced to you and your community. And I know you, so I know the folks that you attract are for sure rock stars as well. But yeah, just so grateful for all of this.
Oh, thank you so much. And as you know, I'm all about big branding, and I'm all about people who take what they have, as I said in your intro, and do something extraordinary about it from a branding perspective. Now, in your case, you have such a transformational story. You were an engineer by trade, great at your job, although unfulfilled and happily married. And then everything changed. What was the catalyst that changed everything? Tell me more about that.
Yeah, the catalyst, and I'm going to speak about this from a branding perspective a little bit, because I think your listeners would appreciate that. But the catalyst was the breakup and just the real pain that I felt after that. And it was almost three years ago now, and it was all just so sudden. I mean, we were in a relationship. It was good, but not great. And just when it came to a sudden end, and she chose to leave and really blindside me, I was crushed. I was absolutely crushed. And I had this vision, things weren't perfect for us. I had the job, I had the relationship, we had the place to live, the condo in Vancouver. So I had all the boxes ticked, but then all of a sudden it was gone. And I had this blank slate that I did not want, but that's what I had. And it was really a combination of this space, this opening that I could do anything or be anything or go anywhere, but also this pain that helped, I believe, unlock this thing and connect these new neurons and do all that amazing stuff. But that just really became the blast and the catalyst for my transformation.
Wow. So how did you get clear and know what direction you wanted to go in? Because a lot of us, right, as part of this thing called life, we suffer breakdowns and breakups and all types of things that can hold us back. And as far as being kicked to the curb and dumped by someone, I can relate to that one myself. Bought the t-shirt, the DVD, and the mug, okay? I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
So tell me more about how you got clear on that direction. You should.
It was a real process. It was a real process. And I don't want to, what I say, I don't want people to think happen instantly, because it was a process, which I talk about in the book. But at the highest level, what it really was just getting back to who I was.
Okay.
And the things that you mentioned in the beginning, the engineering, the speaking, and the writing, two of those things I never did before the breakup. I was the engineer, but I was unfulfilled. So we can almost take that one away.
Okay.
So what it was a real unraveling and coming back to who I was and what I loved and how I loved to express myself, to realize, oh, I can do engineering and I can do it in a different way and I can love it. Oh, it turns out I like to speak and share my words and my knowledge. Oh, wow. I also, this is useful to write and put things down on paper and help organize my thoughts. So, but to answer your question, how I got clear on that, it was a real process of both shedding the old me and shedding the ego, and then also spending a lot of time in the meditation and the nature to really ask myself, what did I want to create next?
Man, that's great. Was it hard for your friends and family to wrap their heads around your 180-degree shift? And how hard was it for you to wrap your head around that as well? Because it sounded like your life was on a pretty good path, and then all of a sudden, boom, something happens and it just, whoa. Tell me more about that. How did that all unfold for everyone else?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that question, Gerry. And it's ironic that I'm recording this at my father's cabin here in Ontario, because it was absolutely so challenging for everyone. Because for the most part, I was on the other side of the country in British Columbia, and after about half a year or so, I started to feel really good because I was getting to a better place. I had done the work. I had processed what had happened. I had stopped being a victim to what had happened, and I was moving forward, and I was learning all these things. I was working with a coach of my own, and I was starting to express myself and share all that I was learning. I was feeling not only better, I had returned to a place of content that I was at before, but I was having these spikes and these Satori moments of going beyond, which was great. But you can appreciate what was happening on the other side of the country, where people are going, are you sure? Like, are you just putting on a show, or is this fake, or what's going on? And why are you putting videos on the internet? Why are you expressing yourself like that? And I could feel that tension every time I went to do a post or express myself. But I knew in my heart that I was onto something good, and I had to keep sharing it.
So when you say Satori moment, what exactly does that mean?
Satori moment to me, and it can the definition. So my book is called Satori Ananda, Awaken to Happiness, okay. And the Awaken to Happiness is the part that I put on the end to fold those two words together. Satori is Japanese. It means flash of enlightenment. Ananda is Sanskrit. It means the bliss of being. And when I talk about the Satori moments, it was really early on in that process where I was, after the separation, where I was trying to get happy again. I was trying to recover my life. I spent months in the city of Vancouver in the Pacific Northwest. For people that are familiar with that, they appreciate what the winters are like. They're dark and they're wet and I was lonely and I was cold and crying in the streets. I wanted to move beyond that. It was important to feel those things and process those thoughts, but I was ready to move forward. And when I started spending time in nature and meditating, I would have these real moments of being fully in the present moment that were just so beautiful. And I just felt this real flash of understanding about what had happened, but also who I was and what I wanted to create going forward.
Wow. A Satori moment. And I love that kind of breakthrough. I'm curious, are the two of you still friends, or what actually happened with the relationship?
Great question. I really appreciate that. And I write about it in the book because it was so important for me to forgive and for me to understand that we both did the best that we could at the time with the tools that we had. And if I'm going to be honest with you, we didn't have many tools. Both of us were living kind of caged versions of ourselves. Mm-hmm. So we were two incomplete pieces that weren't really grounded in who we were, trying to come together. And that didn't work out. But no. Absolutely, because she saw me sharing and unfolding all that I was going through. But at the same time, she was reaching her own truths and coming to her own understanding. And we were really supporting each other on that journey. And absolutely, we're friends and we love each other. And we touch base every now and then. But we've also in this over the last 3 years given each other this space to move on. But we'll always support each other. And we had a chuckle this past week when this was absolutely incredible, Gerry. I can't believe this is how things worked out. But my book launched on what would have been our 3-year anniversary.
Oh wow! How ironic!
3-year wedding. Yeah, and that wasn't planned until like literally a couple of weeks ago. That's the day that came up, and so we had a chuckle about that. How someone said, things have really come full circle. But I don't really see it like that. I see it as more of an infinity sign because we're going to still be part of each other's lives, and our relationship is going to still go on, but just in a new way.
Wow. So what was it like to write a book about this whole process? Because most people don't end up writing a book, although some people write sad songs, right? But what was that like for you to turn around and write a book about this and expose it and help other people?
Yeah, it was great. It's been a journey. I've learned so much, and it was just really this pull and this calling to do this. Before the breakup, I had never written, I had never journaled or anything. But right in the moment, right after, when I was right in the midst of that pain, I felt called to, as an engineer, organize my thoughts and write them down. And I had actually these journals that my dad had been giving me for years and years that I just taken and thrown in the closet, and I had never used them before. Uh-huh. But it was one of the first things I got in the midst of that breakup to help understand. But the process for writing, the way it worked out was about half a year after the actual separation. I took 2.5 months to go through Central America and Costa Rica and Nicaragua, and it was such a beautiful time. I was surfing and meditating and doing the yoga and just really loving myself, just practicing so much self-love. But at the same time, I'd spend 2 to 3 hours a day going through this volume of journals that I had accumulated. And I was processing the thoughts, but I was writing what would eventually become the manuscript for the book.
How did you handle the self-esteem issues? Because I know for a lot of people, when they go through this kind of breakup or whatever, I mean, it can really mess with your psyche. I mean, when I think about my own life and I think about people that I've known, friends and whatnot, and what they've gone through, it just makes them start questioning their own self-worth, their own self-esteem. Talk about that a bit for me, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I was crushed. My whole identity was absolutely crushed. The relationship, everything, it had been so set up, and then in an instant it was gone. And so that was absolutely one of the first questions, like how did this happen to me? Who am I? How am I gonna generate the courage to pick myself back up. But it really was a process of tuning out all the noise, coming back to who I am, doing the things that I love, doing all the sports, spending the time outside, just doing things that are really, really good for me.
Yes.
And self-love is not selfish. So many people get that backwards. They think that spending time on themselves, going to yoga or doing whatever you want to do, whatever your hobby may be, they think that is absolutely selfish and they should be serving others 100% of the time. The problem is when you're drawing from that bank account, if you will, it's going to go empty unless you're putting things into it, unless you're making deposits into your self-love account. But for me, that process of building up my self-esteem and getting grounded again in who I was and what I believed in and what I wanted to create going forward, it really was tied into that whole self-love piece.
I really like that, because what comes up for me when I hear that, and that is so powerful, my friend, is the whole idea of not allowing yourself to be a victim again. Because I think for a lot of people, when they go through that kind of trauma on a personal relationship, it's one thing to feel hurt. However, it can lead to a lot of mind chatter, right? That doesn't serve any of us, because we start wondering, what's wrong? Is there something wrong with me? Is there something about me that is going to push someone away from me? So how did you handle the mind chatter part? Tell me more about how you've been able to get into this joyful state, because my sense of you is that not only did you overcome the hurt, you've been able to source what's at the root of all that and open up something as a new possibility for others, which I think is so great about you, because your brand is about being able to help people get into that joyful state regardless of what happened to them. Can you speak about that for a minute?
Yeah, absolutely. And getting into the joyful state.
Yes.
100%. You absolutely nailed it right on there. So there's two things. There's the victimhood, but then there's also controlling the thoughts. And if I go back to those very early days where I was oscillating back and forth between pain and then these Satori moments, I was all over the place. I was like complete hurt and crying one day, and then, oh my God, this is such a beautiful moment the other. So I was going back and forth, and I was like, first of all, where are these extreme thoughts and feelings coming from? And why can't I just keep them on the gas pedal over on the good side? And it was really that questioning of what is going on? What is this? What are these thoughts bouncing around in myself? So it was that 1 millimeter step back of how are these thoughts coming into my mind, and which ones can I let and how am I separate from them, and how am I the one who is aware of these thoughts? And that's really it. When we get that appreciation of we are not our thoughts,
right?
We are the awareness of our thoughts. And I'm going to go a little woo-woo, and I'm going to go a little Eckhart Tolle, because this is exactly the conversations that need to happen for people to reach this lasting joy.
Exactly.
But when you appreciate that, and you can do whatever you need to do to make that visualization that we are not our thoughts, we are the ones who are aware of them. So when those ones that come up, the self-doubt, the fears, the insecurities, the anxiety, we can be aware of that, but that is not us. We can let those ones float by, and then we can spend more of our focus and our energy on the beautiful thoughts, the beautiful feelings, the beautiful emotions. And just this morning, I had the absolutely most beautiful morning, Gerry. I was at my mom's place. I was meditating with the sunrise on Lake Ontario. I went for the most brilliant run, and it was cold and it was crisp and the leaves are changing colors. Gerry, it was just a regular Saturday morning, and it was unbelievable.
I love that. I love that, because what I'm also hearing is how we have to reprogram the story that we can often make as a result of the breakup. And I don't know if that's the right word, but I think that something happens and we turn it into a story, and that story may result in someone feeling as if they're not good enough or something's wrong with them, like I said earlier. And what you are getting to is how we all have the power to not buy into the story. Because if we buy into the story, right, it leads to a lack of self-esteem and self-confidence, which then leads to a loss of identity. Next thing you know, we become needy and codependent on other people. So you are able to get beyond all the hurt and the sadness and the insecurity. So what are some tips for people who are listening to this in terms of how they can get past all of that and regain their self-worth so quickly?
Yeah, yeah, you nailed it, Gerry. And essentially, I realized that we can write our own story. So I actually started doing that in the manuscript, which became the book. And now I'm living what I wrote in the book. Now I'm a best-selling author, the thing I wrote about 2.5 years ago. Now I'm speaking. Now I'm having incredible conscious conversations with brilliant humans and passionate, heart-centered, amazing creatures like yourself, Gerry. This is what I got clear on. This is what I got clear on, and now I am living it. But the one biggest tip, and the one thing that I did in this process was, and I'll go back to what you mentioned in the last question, was about being a victim to everything. When I switched my mindset from being a victim to what had happened to me, to shifting that all of this happened for me. This is such a real gift to help me awaken to my best self and now start going beyond and start helping and sharing people to create their own dream lives as well. This is a real gift. Yes. And this victimhood, not only does it show up on big things in our lives like devastating breakups or job losses or fires or whatever it may be, but it can show up in very, very little minute things on a daily basis in people's lives. But when you become aware that you are projecting yourself as a victim, you can be aware of that and you can turn it around and leave that mindset behind. You absolutely free yourself to live a joyful life.
I like that, because what you're also getting to is the importance of discovering your own value, to never settle for less, to be able to ignite your own identity, your own self-esteem, your own self-confidence to serve you in such a way whereby, hey, I can have that same love again, or perhaps even something better, right? Because one of the things that I once heard you mention is about the imposter syndrome. What do you mean by that? Because you said a lot of people fall into that. What is that, Michael?
Yeah, the imposter syndrome is really projecting this version of yourself that is absolutely not true. And if you're projecting something over here and you don't have the confidence or the skills, but really you're over here, the gap in between is absolutely just stress. But when you forget about trying to be something you're not, and you, like for me, one of the greatest things I've learned over the past few years is just to be so humble and ask for help all the time. And this is absolutely, I'm glad this came up, because this absolutely ties back to the branding perspective and building a personal brand. But to be humble and to ask for help and not be projecting something you're not, because I had never written a book. I'd spoken on stages before, but not like I do now. I had never coached people. So I had imposter syndrome and for all of those things. But I was not always, but eventually humble enough to ask for help and pay for programs and pay for coaches to build the strengths and the skills that I knew I needed to up level and continue to up level for where I'm going next, Gerry. I'm pulling all the help for where this party's going. But once I know where I am and grounded and what my skills are, whatever it may be, then you stop trying to pretend to be something you're not. And that eliminates so much stress.
So do people form like some kind of love identity? Because you're helping people transform their identity in this thing called love. Love for ourselves, love for other people, the ability to be loved and to give love. Because when someone goes through that painful breakup, and this is so great that you do what you do, because there's millions of people out there who can relate to this topic, I'm sure. It can just devastate us so much that we wonder, is true love even possible for me? Is it even possible? Because that woman, not your ex, but that woman, quote unquote, or that man, whoever we're talking to, whatever, that significant other, oftentimes we look at that person as the one and only. And when we think that she or he was the one that was meant for me, this is the one, and then the one breaks up with you. Oh my God, that can just be life-shattering. Anything you want to share with our listeners about that? Because that's what I think really knocks us off our feet. That's what takes the wind out of the sails, which is, my God, that was my dream. Girl, yeah. That was my dream guy. And so so anything in the future is going to be less than that. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. I think for you, Gerry, you're your dream guy. And for me, I'm my dream guy. And what that means is we can't depend on others to complete us and complete this love triangle, but we have to be so grounded and just vibrating with this love within us, this love for life, this love for connection, this love for who we are at a soul level.
Yes.
And for me, the process was really peeling back all these masks that I had accumulated over the years because of society and programming and all of that stuff. And just getting back to that base case where we are really born from, where we are really birthed into this world, into this universe, because the universe is base case, base vibration, where it wants to hum at is love. And when we start there and then life happens, we get so far away from that. But everything I do is to get back to that source, to get back to that infinite knowledge, to get back to that vibration of love. And when it's just in me and around me in all these different ways, then amazing opportunities and people get attracted to me, like yourself, like this moment, like this podcast, like this book, like the hundreds, Gerry, of people that supported me this week with my book launch. And they have all gotten to know me in this state over in a few years, because I've been sharing what I've been going through. I've been sharing about writing the book. I've been sharing about all the roadblocks I hit writing the book. And I had been authentic, and I had expressed myself, and I had shown my soul, and I put it all out there. But I've all done it from a space of love.
Wow, man, you are a role model for others. So if the Michael 5 years ago met the Michael today, what would he think? And would he believe it?
He'd go, whoa, man, how do you look younger than me? And how did you do that? Wow. Because let me tell you, I'm reverse aging, but that's a conversation for another time. But I love that question, because I often speak to him, and this is such an important thing for in branding is to speak to who we were and what we've learned in our transformation and in whatever capacity that may be. But that's tough, because I don't know if he would have listened. I wouldn't know if he had gotten it. And I would give him a hug. I'd say, you're doing the best you can with the tools that you have. But he probably would have, I don't know if he would have resonated with a lot of the things I'm doing and saying. So that's true, because I speak to people that are through my writing and through my speaking that are in that same state. But all I can do is keep sharing my message in the way that I do it, doing the sports and doing the writing and doing it. I can go extreme casual and I can put the suit on and rock it like that too. But all I can do is be me, and whoever is out there that gets a morsel of wisdom out of that, that's all that matters.
Oh my God, that is so great. So what advice would you give to our listeners to get unstuck and follow your passion? Because you really are laying out an incredible path for someone to follow. So what advice would you give to folks?
You have to shake it up. And I talk about this sort of 3/4 of the way through the book. You have to form these, we're not going to go all neuroscience today, but you have to form these new pathways in your brain. We use like this tiny little piece of our brain over here, and there's this whole other capacity that is available to us. Mm-hmm. And the way that you unlock it is simply by doing new things. Mm. It can be walking a new way to the grocery store. It can be rearranging the apps on your phone. It can be running a different route. It can be driving a new way home. It can be hanging out with new people. You just be open and courageous to try these new things and these new experiences, and then really process what's going on with those and see how that feels, and build that. You build courage by doing courageous acts. And you're okay if you drive a new way home. You're going to be okay if you go to a new grocery store. But these new experiences, and this is why travel is so amazing. People don't even realize this is why they actually love going on trips. It's because they're doing something new and they're waking up their brain.
Now you make that sound.
We can do this now you make that sound so simple. But there is the F word, right? And we know what the F word is, which are our fears. How do we confront our fears and move through them? Because this whole idea of doing something new is what scares so many of us. What do we do? You know what's scarier, Jerry? You know what's scarier? Getting to the end of the road, wherever we go, wherever you believe that we go, and meeting the person we could have become.
Oh man.
That is scarier to me than fear. But for me, again, I'm grateful because I survived my absolute rock bottom. I survived hitting that ultimate fear that I was confronted with. So I've become a little bit fearless. But people can build their own fear by starting small and doing these tiny things that we just talked about, and realizing, oh, okay, I'm going to be all right if I take a new path today. Life is going to go on.
I like that. And speaking about fears, I read that you are an Ironman guy, right? Now, see, right there, you're at the top of my list, because I admire anyone, male or female, that can do an Ironman event. So what was that like? Can you talk about that for a second, just to kind of switch gears in relation to fears?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because that's scary to spend all day doing something like that. But in terms of fear, it was, my mother had been doing them for years, and
wow,
she's obviously 30 years older than me or whatever that may be, but she had been doing them for a dozen years. So, and I had been doing triathlons, the shorter distance, for a while. But eventually I was like, I should probably see what all the fuss is about and get over this fear of swimming 3.8K, biking 180 kilometers, and then running a marathon. But it is really that. It was just tiny little steps each and every day in that direction to be able to build up to the event. But the most interesting thing, and again, I write about this in the book, the most interesting thing about the race was how kind of empty I felt at the end. I was looking around for this I thought I was going to do this huge race and have this real breakthrough in life, but it wasn't like that at all. I kind of got to the finish line and I was like, that just took all day and I'm extremely tired. But it was this real incredible awareness of that not being really the pathway, the awakening to where I needed to go. So I just had to switch gears and be open to where life took me next.
Oh, that's awesome. So, I mean, you're this incredible guy. You have a lot of wisdom and perspectives and insights. And I'm just curious, is there anything that you're struggling with right now? Is there something, because people who are listening to this, someone could say, oh, I love what he's saying. However, he's not going through, or he hasn't gone through what I've been through, or he seems like someone who's so enlightened that he knows how to rise above all of the crap in life. So is there anything that you're struggling with right now?
Yeah, absolutely. And everyone has their own challenges, but we're all human and we all feel pain, and we all get crushed in different ways. And mine happened the way it did. So, but at the soul level, these are all just emotions that connect us, and we can all relate to each other. But what I'm struggling with right now, I've had a couple really good days, so I'm feeling good, but I know that's going to keep swinging. What I'm struggling with right now, and I had to check in with myself this morning, even after getting up and checking the phone and checking the book sales and checking the computer, because I have a spot that know that the book will get to, but I know I have to be patient. I had 2 words that I'm going to remind myself. I actually wrote a sticky note down for them: patience and gratitude. I know those 2 things I am going to have to keep on pulling in over and over on this journey, and the book is going to do what it does in the time that is required. But I need to keep this good energy about it. I have to be so grateful for the support that I get every day, whether it's one person buying a book or 2 or one person posting about it. And I have to be patient and really enjoy this journey for the book to get to where it needs to go. But for me, patience and gratitude is all about keeping the energy high and attracting, again, like we talked about earlier, all the dreams that we want to live in this life.
Oh my goodness. So that also gets back to what we were sharing earlier about codependency, because a lot of times just to kind of circle back to the whole relationship issue, a lot of times when we love someone, and we care so much about that person, our happiness, quite often is based on that person. Like, that person makes me feel X, and if that person goes away, or if this person does this, if that person does that, it can devastate us in terms of, like, oh my God, incredible sadness and depression. So I like what you just said about patience and gratitude, because And maybe that's the breakthrough for someone right now, which is, instead of allowing yourself to be dependent upon that person making you feel a certain way, why not instead acknowledge the person for who they are and the love and the joy and everything they bring to your life, but don't let that be the thing that you become so dependent on. Instead of just be grateful, because if it's to be, it's to be, even if that person completes me, right? Quote unquote, that famous line from a Tom Cruise movie, I think it was, "You complete me." Was it Tom Cruise?
Yeah, that's Tom. That was Tom and Cuba Gooding Jr., yeah.
Oh my God, yes. Well, I was also thinking of Jerry Maguire. Right?
Yeah, same movie. That's the one.
Yeah. Was Cuba Gooding in it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right, of course. Yeah. Oh my God, he was the athlete. God,
he was the guy.
Funny, yeah. I love that movie. So anyway, it's so that's a good lesson, right? So any last words do you want to share about this whole thing about codependency, finding your joy, finding your blitz, and not being?
Yeah, no, I'm glad you scratched on that one as well, because even on launch day a couple days ago, I had this little tinge of disappointment, because this expectation that I had for someone to post and help about it and didn't happen. So I had to pull back and not be dependent on, and I had all these stories in my head about why they didn't do it, or et cetera, the way we do things like that. But I had to pull myself back and just, again, be grateful for all the people that were supporting me, and not drain all my energy for the one person who eventually got around to it. So that 24 hours of me making up stories was absolutely a waste of energy. But again, I'm absolutely so glad that you brought that up. But for me, again, it's going to be patience and gratitude. Yeah. But yeah, in terms of relationships, again, it all just comes back to us filling ourselves up, filling our cups up, so we don't have to be dependent on someone else to do that for us.
Wow. Are there any inspirational books that you'd like to recommend to our listeners?
Well, I know one.
Yours, right?
But within mine, I read a ton, and I have 13 books listed in the back that I was reading about and talking about on this journey. And the first one where my journey really started was Michael Singer's The Untethered Soul. And I really gravitated to that because it really helped me understand what we spoke about earlier about how we are not our thoughts, but we are the one that is aware of them.
Oh, awesome. And how can people find out more about you in terms of social media and whatnot?
Yeah, and again, I just want to thank you so much, Gerry, for making this happen and connecting me with your incredible community. I'm super easy to find. So Michael Tranmer, Michael.Tranmer. I spend most of my time on Instagram or Facebook, or if you go to my website, michaeltranmer.com, the social links are on there. I'd love to connect with your listeners.
Absolutely. Well, listen, my friend, this has been an absolute joy. It really has been. And it was actually healing, I think, for so many people to hear that there is this thing in life, because there's all types of trauma. We all know that. And the world is facing incredible trauma right now with this pandemic and whatnot. And whatever insights that someone can get from someone like yourself, who's been there, done that, got through it, got to the other side, is just awesome for everyone. So I just want to thank you for being here. And for our listeners out there, if you'd like to learn more about Michael, in addition to what he shared, feel free to come to my website, GerryFosterBranding.com, go to the podcast page, scroll down, look for this interview with Michael, and you will certainly see all of his contact information. Grab onto this guy as far as what he offers as wisdom in this thing called relationships, and soak it all up. So Michael, thank you again, my friend. Have a great weekend. And to our listeners, this is Gerry Foster, the Branded Evangelist, signing off. Take care. Bye-bye.
You have just listened to Big Brand Formula. Thanks for joining us, and make sure to visit our website, GerryFosterBranding.com/podcast, where you can subscribe to the show and access our resources. If you found value in this show, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes or simply telling a friend about us. Join Gerry again on the next episode of Big Brand Formula, where he can further help create your world-class brand.